Welcome to WACSUN Weekly. WACSUN Weekly is the official Western Athletic and ASUN Conference podcast of FCS Fans Nation. WACSUN Weekly is hosted by Dustin Helton, Brandon Owens, and Will Seiler.
Welcome back, FCS Fans Nation, for the next installment of WACSUN Weekly. We are full-blown into football season, and if you're watching on YouTube tonight, you may see that we've got a fourth box on the screen today, and we are delighted to be joined by the former voice of the Kennesaw State Owls and the host of the FCS Check Down Podcast, Nathan McCreary. So, Mr. McCreary, how are we doing tonight?
Great. We had a great week of football. You just kind of starting to get into that conference play and looking forward to some of these rivalry games. Absolutely.
Well, we are privileged that you chose to join us tonight, and so thank you for doing that. Gentlemen that are always with me, Rev and Brandon, how are we doing?
Oh, I got 98 problems, and social media is one at the moment.
All right. I didn't know where that was going when you said you had 98 problems, but Brandon, how are you, my man?
Ecstatic. The band I work for, we won our contest yesterday, so I was very happy yesterday. Was very tired when I woke up this morning to go to work, but I was very happy yesterday.
Well, congratulations. That is awesome. I know a lot of work goes into those band competitions for sure. Well, we'll just jump right into it. We had lots of games yesterday, had a lot of non-conference matchups, and so I'll go ahead and run through them here. EKU and Austin Peay in the game of the week from last week. Austin Peay stormed all the way back, took EKU down 31-20. SEMO came out on top against UCA 35-27. Kennesaw State pulled out a squeaker against Wofford 24-22. Jacksonville State rolled over Nichols 52-21. And as Rev is showing, nobody cares. Tarleton rolled over North Alabama 43-28. SFA dropped almost the century mark off Warner. That was something. Southern Utah won their rivalry game against Utah Tech 31-17. And then Abilene knocked off or just beat Western New Mexico 34-7. So lots of good results. We talked before the show on games we want to talk about a little bit. We got to touch on the game of the week, Austin Peay, Eastern Kentucky. This was a tale of two halves. So I didn't get to watch a whole lot of it because I was at SEMO for the UCA game. So, Rev, I'll start with you. What did you see from the Governors in the second half that pulled it out for them?
I just want to know what the hell happened. To me, just Eastern Kentucky was just completely obliterating, dominating the first half. And then it's like second half, they just completely shut down. It just surprised me to see a team that could go in, do 7 overtimes with Bowling Green, basically hang in with Eastern Michigan, dominate, Alabama A&M, and then just completely collapse. I don't know if at this point, like, what triggered that, if it was just the fact that they were playing in Clarksville instead of playing in Richmond, if it was that not quite 10,000 crowd that they had there to help with the goes, but it just completely shocked me that the wheels completely just came off the bus for the Colonels in the second half.
Nathan, did you get a chance to watch that game?
Yeah, I did, and I almost equate it to SFA and Jacksonville State. I mean, Jacksonville State looked terrible in that first half. It was 17-7, and SFA completely disappeared in the second half. I think EKU did the exact same thing, and I had. We had in our podcast in the FCS Check Down, we talked to Coach Ron, whose son is Ryan Jackson, on the defensive line for EKU. And I asked him, I said, it's been so emotional. You've had 2 FBS opponents. You've had your coach die in his office and then be resuscitated and then come back to the field. I said, is there a crash to this emotional roller coaster that they've been on? And he said, he didn't think so. But I think that's exactly what happened. This team has been just on such a high. They've been playing high level football that's been highly emotional. You're on the road, and all of a sudden the second half you totally collapse, and that's the only thing I can think of is it was an emotional collapse for them rather than on the field. Although the resulted in on the field issues, because I think EKU is very, very good. But now Austin Peay has positioned themselves to be the favorite for at least an at-large in the playoffs, if not the AQ.
Yeah, I agree that maybe it was an emotional crash because, the game lines up that way too. First half played really well, probably come out halftime. Austin Peay plays a little emotional and obviously got the best of them. Just some stats that were pretty astounding from that game. Mike DeLillo, my guy, ran for 180 yards as well, and then that's only 180 of 320 something that the team rolled up. So you run for 322 yards, you're gonna win a lot of football games. So I thought that was interesting, and I'm just saying Austin Peay has quietly snuck up to 4-1, and not a lot of 4-win teams in America right now, but they're one of them. So. Really not necessarily looking forward to them coming to Conway this week because I don't know. I think it's a very good football team. I think they've got a real chance to make some noise in the playoffs. We'll go ahead and move on to SEMO and UCA. 8-point game, 35-27. SEMO. Story of the game, special teams. It has been in 2 losses for UCA so far, to Missouri State and to Southeast Missouri. We gave up a kick return touchdown. And then just didn't cover well on the rest of them. So that was the difference in the game, and we didn't control the line of scrimmage. Geno Hess ran for 205 yards. That dude's pretty good, but they don't really have a mobile quarterback, but he looked mobile against us. So, Brandon, did you get a chance to watch it?
I watched a little bit of it going up to the contest after our rehearsal, and I was very impressed with how SEMO looked. SEMO just looked like the better team. They looked like the more complete team. They were the more dominant team of what little I was able to watch.
They definitely look like a top 15. I don't know what that was. I don't know what's going on here. But what was that? I have no idea what that was. But,
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, just Will McElvain, want to give him a shout out. He had his second good game in a row. He threw for 281, which he kind of had to. UCA rushed for 16 yards, so he had to have a good game. He got popped on the first drive. Looked just like the Missouri State one. And I know I went on Twitter with you, Nathan, about that hit from Missouri State. I thought it was targeting. I don't think you did, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of old school and feel like a lot of the targeting penalties we would just call like old real good football plays. But
Yeah.
Him with the helmet, leading with the helmet is a pretty, and that was tough. That happened so quick. And after I watched it, I was like, yeah, that's probably targeting. But I wasn't gonna admit I was wrong.
With SEMO, like if they're not in folks' top 25 this week, they need to be. They've had themselves one hell of a year so far, and they're looking like they could just run away with the OVC. To be honest with you, with the way that they have DeLaurent throwing the ball and the way Hess is just moving. Surprising though that Will McElvain threw for so many yards and no touchdowns, nothing, no scoring production out of him.
So I will say Darius Hale, he's a touchdown machine. We tend to hit a lot of his touchdown runs are 1-2 yard touchdown runs. So, and we did have a couple drives stall out at like the 9-10 yard line yesterday though. So, he's not scoring a whole lot, but I will say he's managing games pretty well. You take out Missouri State where things were a little shaky and then take out Ole Miss, and he's done well the past 2 weeks. So.
Yeah. The thing I would say too with UCA is that watching them this year and watching the games that they've almost won, you can see that they're on the cusp of being a real good team. They need they probably need another year or two, but they would definitely be, in the top 15, top 10 sort of conversation with the trajectory that they have going right now. I know Coach Brown's worked hard, to put pieces together again. They lost a lot this past year. Hale is still young. So with McElwain and Hale on the offense, just give time for the other players to develop. And honestly, next year, like I would not be shocked to see UCA, being a top 10 team by the end of the next season with just the way they're going.
Well, I hope so, because I'm not used to watching UCA start 1-3.
I enjoy it. I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, Nathan Brown hope so too.
Yeah. I'll talk to Coach Brown tomorrow. I go to coach the radio show that they do every Monday night, and so I get to talk to him about the games every Monday night, and I'll show up and be like, "What should we do, Will?" I'm like,
well, for UCA, they had so many pieces last year that everyone had such high expectation. Well, you lose those pieces, and you go, "Okay, now what?" And Darius Hale hasn't had a great start to the season. McElwain, lots of questions around him. But you just kind of wonder, if you didn't do it last year, what's going to, make the difference this year? I think Destin's right. I think they need some more development, and I like Coach Brown as a head coach, but man, the pieces were there last year. And so that makes me wonder, is this the right guy for the job to get it done? And I know he's a legacy there, and it'd be terrible for him to lose his job after not performing after a couple of years. But you got to get it done on the field. I mean, he had so many pieces last year. It'd be interesting to see what he can put together this year.
I will say the way the schedule worked out for UCA was honestly a coach's nightmare. To put 45 new faces on a roster and then open up with a top 5 FCS team. Ole Miss, you got the job done against Idaho State. You thought SEMO preseason wasn't going to be what they are, and then here they are. They're in my top 25, sitting around 19, 18, something like that. So for a coach, that's tough. And then you have to play another top 25 team at home this week. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, the schedule has done UCA no favors. So
iron sharpens iron, my friends. You get a tough schedule like that, it's only going to help you for next year.
Yeah, EKU's in the same situation. Matter of fact, I think they're 24th and 25th for strength of schedule. Yep. EKU's in the same boat, having to play Jacksonville State and Sam Houston. And so, they got a tough road ahead as well.
All right. We'll talk a little Kennesaw State and Wofford. And Nathan, I know these are your Owls. You're an alum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what did you see yesterday as Kennesaw State squeaked one out over the Terriers?
Well, they made the quarterback change. Jonathan Murphy's an experienced quarterback. He got the start in the playoffs. His very first start for Kennesaw State was at Weber State in that playoff game. He's a very dynamic. He's a left-hander. I think he understands this offense much better than Xavier Shepard did, although Xavier Shepard got all the accolades during the offseason. And I think Coach Bohannon wants to get back to what I thought Bohannon wanted to get back to what Kennesaw State was, which is throwing the ball 4 or 5 times a game and rushing, really pounding the rock. But they didn't. They threw the ball 14 times or something like that. If you talk to their offensive coordinator, Grant Chestnut, he said if we throw the ball 10 times, we're losing generally the football game. So I think Kennesaw State has a little bit of an identity crisis right now. And I don't know that if I'm going to blame the new blocking rule where you can't outside the tackle box, you can't go below the waist. I think that's a huge part, and it is affecting these spread option teams. But I think Kennesaw State needs an identity look in the mirror and find out who they are right now. I didn't think they looked particularly good. Wofford's a terrible football team, and they should have blown them out. They didn't, and it came down to the wire. And so, I don't know what to make of Kennesaw State right now. They've got Jacksonville State coming up, and I think that is going to be a slide. I think Brandon's finally going to get Kennesaw State in the
Thank God.
Now, all that could change. You never know how it goes. But, I don't know who Kennesaw State is right now. And off of Jonathan Murphy's performance, you may start him again. You may keep Shepard on the bench. I don't know. We'll find out this week, but or platoon them, one of the two. But I don't think Kennesaw State has a real strong identity right now.
Yeah, my 2 questions I have with Kennesaw State are: one, where's the defense, right? Because you let Wofford throw for 350 something yards, and I saw that stat, I was like, this isn't right. And it turns out it wasn't. Second, what do you do with Xavier Shepard? You do have All-American talent there. Why don't you create some packages for him or put him in another position? He could probably go in there and run it and be in the backfield with his speed. I just think that's what Bohannon has to figure out, because putting him on the bench and not using him is a waste of talent. Like it truly is. And that's nothing against Jonathan Murthy, because he's a great quarterback too. But I mean, yeah, I think what you said about them having an identity crisis and just so many questions is what it is. But it's not the offense for me; it's their defense. Their defense is just not there. Not the defense you expected to see out of the Owls.
Yeah, they lost a lot at the linebacker position. They lost both their leading tacklers from a year ago. They lost some in the secondary, although the secondary is going to be supposed to be more talented back there. They lost some on the defensive line. They're not getting pressure on their opposing quarterbacks, and there's just too many holes in the offense right now. I mean, Sanford picked them apart, and it was a really hard game to watch. But yeah, so I think you're right. Their defense has been bad, and I don't think they have a real quick answer for that, except for just work at it, get better in the middle of the week for those weekend games, because it's right now you're just not a good football team.
I want to hear what Brandon thinks about KSU, because his opinion interests me.
I don't know. I'm literally like Nathan. This is not the same KSU I'm used to seeing. I'm used to KSU literally being dominant, just pounding the rock, just running it down the field, running it down everybody's throats. Like, there's part of we'll get into it a little bit later, but there's part of me that thinks this weekend might be good for me, and there's the other part that I'm like, the past 3 times we've said that, and look what happened.
Yeah, one of the things that was weird, I'm sorry, Will, one of the things that I thought was interesting is when I went on with Sam Herder in the early summer and said I didn't think Kennesaw State was going to be a very good football team. They lost their running back. They hadn't really replaced anybody. Their defense had been depleted. And then I started seeing camp, and I was at their camp talking to Coach Bohannon. And Coach Bohannon's like, this is the best team we've got. These guys are stepping up. They're player-led. We've had the best practices since I've been a coach here. I'm thinking, okay, this dude knows what he's talking about. Turns out that on the field is kind of what I thought they'd be. Just their running back game has not picked up. They're throwing the ball too much, and it may be because of this blocking rule. I don't know. I haven't talked to Coach Bohannon about it, but the fact that he thought this team was going to come out and do well and they're not, that's kind of concerning from my perspective.
Yeah, I haven't kept up as much with the rest of the triple option teams like going to FBS, but I know the first couple weeks, the service academies struggled a little bit, which you never can tell with the service academies whether they're struggling because they're bad or they're struggling because of a rule or something like that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting with Kennesaw because they got a real test this week with Jacksonville State, and we'll hit on that a little bit more later. I don't want to hit on a bunch of blowouts too much, but there's one blowout I want to talk about, and I think this will be the Rev rant for the week. SFA put 98 points on Warner. If you don't know, this is a game that was originally not scheduled. It was the result of the Lamar defection to the Southland, going back to the Southland. And then you got Abilene twice because of UIW leaving. So some scheduling issues. It's just not a way to get, quality opponents on short notice like that. So you got to schedule a football game. You got Warner. So, Rev, give me your thoughts on the Lumberjacks hanging 98 on Warner.
I mean, it's kind of weird because as a fan, you want to see your team win, but you're not necessarily proud of the win that occurred with this game. And it's really frustrating because with the score, Sports Illustrated picked it up, The Athletic picked it up, and a lot of it was, and a lot of folks picked it up and just basically read the box score versus actually watching the game. SFA was up 59-0 at half. They were playing the third stringers. They played a guy at quarterback who wasn't a quarterback, basically, and they still managed to put up 30-something points. And those scores weren't all offensive. They had a return for a touchdown, a pick for a touchdown. Actually, I think they had 2 picks for a touchdown. So like I said, as a fan, you kind of hate how this goes. And of course, everybody sees the box score and it sees where it says 98-0. It says 2-point conversion failed. And they're like, they went for 2 to get to 100. No, because 1, our scoreboard doesn't go to 100. And 2, they kneeled the damn ball, right? Because they stopped. They kneeled the ball. But no one saw that. And certain FCS media folks went ahead and ran with the the story that they were going to go for 100 and failed. Like, that's absolute BS, and it's shame on them for being lazy in their reporting. And if they hear this, they know who they are. I'm not going to say their names out loud, but they know who they are. Although I'm betting one of them definitely doesn't listen to this podcast. So anyway, my problem with this game is that it shouldn't have happened, as Will said. The thing the NCAA should have done is the NCAA should have said to Lamar and UIW that you have to play the schedule that was made this year. The fact that they were able to leave at the end of June, the Southland had such messed up schedules because they're playing home and home. So like, oh, well, we can work you in. So then it left other schools completely just up a creek. There was no D2 schools available in the state to play because they all had games. Commerce had a game against a NAIA school. I wish we had bought that game out from them and had them come to Nacogdoches, because that would have been a fun game, but it didn't happen. So instead we had to play an NAIA school. It's kind of funny because you think NAIA and you're thinking non-Scully, things like that. And that's not true. They do have less Scullies than D2. They have 24 full scholarships they can use instead of 36. But some NAIA schools can hang in with D2 schools. So it's just, he caught a school that was just completely outmanned, out-talented and everything, and it sucks. Now, the other option to this would have been to have a third bye week, because since SFA played week 0, they have 2 bye weeks. So they had a bye week last week. So how are you going to have a team have 2 bye weeks going into their rivalry game? It doesn't make any sense. So I think the administration did what they could do to get a game. And, hopefully, at least for the SFA side, it knocked some of the rust off and they were able to understand some of the issues that they were having. I don't think Warner is a good litmus test to see if what they did in the bye week was truly effective, but at least, it gives them a little bit of a boost going into the game at NRG. But, I spent most of last night correcting folks on social media about this game. I was like, besmirch us for scoring 98 points. I'm for that. You know what I mean? Like, you can go off all you want about them scoring 98 points. That's fine, but you can't. People are trying to say they're trying to run to 100. My other thing too, Will and I were talking about this before the show, is what do you tell a third stringer to go out there and kneel 3 times and punt? You can't do that to an athlete. You can't tell an athlete to not go out there and play, especially when they're getting opportunities to do it. So I don't envy Coach Carthel being in that position. But I just think some of this is getting absolutely blown up, much like the score was. But, it is kind of frustrating to have had to kind of read the media today because of that game last night.
I felt for you last night because you were correcting people on Twitter, and once Sports Center and all these other, mega media outlets picked it up, I was like, all right, Red, you can't keep up anymore. Like, there's no way to correct everybody.
I corrected Matt Brown, and that's what mattered. Matt Brown, I did correct him, and he took the corrections. So
we're good.
Hey, I don't know if you knew, on the East Coast, the ABC actually brought in a highlight of them kneeling at the 2-point conversion, and they talked about it was 98-0. So that was kudos to them.
Yeah, at least they're showing the right thing. I mean, thank goodness I had a beer nearby for after that rant, because gosh, it's so frustrating. I'm ready to get past this and focus on next week.
Well, that, my friends, is your week 4 Rev rant. I know your wife was looking forward to that one. She was talking about it today. So
yeah, this morning when I woke up, she was like, "Why the hell did we play Warner?" And I told her why, and she's like, "That's going to be your rant for the week." She listens to the show every now and then. So hi, Rachel, if you're listening. Yeah, she knows. She knew it was coming.
Rachel's the GOAT.
She is truly the GOAT.
She's awesome. Well, those were the games we kind of want to talk about this week. We're going to move into our middle segment, and per usual, I'm going to hand it off to the Rev to carry us through this middle segment here. So, Rev, you can take it away.
Yeah, so let me pull this up because I actually have some stuff. And we got a couple things we're going to do this time just for fun. I mean, obviously, since Nate's here, we want to talk about his view of the WACSUN because, as part of the group of folks who covers this conference, I think y'all will be interested in his perspective. He and I have talked about it before. But then also we have a couple of other little things. And yes, we are going to do a game because Nathan is here. We're going to have a little fun with it. He can opt in if he wants, but since it's rivalry week, it has to do with rivalries. But so, I mean, Nathan, first of all, just one, again, thanks for joining. But I have talked about this before, but with the WACSUN and the leagues, what do you see as the future of the WACSUN? How long do you see it lasting?
Well, I think it's going to go through at least 2024. And I don't know if y'all have mentioned it or not, but Commissioner Gumbart, ASUN commissioner, has announced that he's retiring. And so he had a health issue early in the summer. I have no idea if this is related to the health issue or if he's just realizing, hey, I've been doing this for 30 plus years and it's time to go. You're literally going to have two new commissioners. You had Jeff Hurd retire at the end of last year, and now Ted Gumbart at the end of this coming year. He will not be there for the 23-24 season. So I think there's big questions. Obviously, the ASUN has to add a team. They've applied for a waiver for the 2023 season to play with 5 teams rather, which is below the minimum. So they actually have an automatic qualifier for the 2023 season with only 5 teams. If they had to leave the ASUN WAC alliance and go on their own, and they would be fine. Then the WAC would have to apply for an AQ itself. But I think that's going to last through 2024. And just talking to some people around the league, they really feel like there's a big opportunity or big likelihood that the ASUN and WAC may become a football conference together. And I know Ted Gumbart's feeling on it was stay regional. He wanted regional teams to come in. He wanted to bring in maybe a Mercer or a Charleston Southern or something to add to the ASUN. But obviously the WAC's not a regional opponent, so you're having the games are across the country are expensive. So I don't know how the presidents are gonna feel about joining these leagues. I mean, a joint league and having to play and travel to Utah maybe a couple times a year from a team like Kennesaw State. So I don't know. I think that the likelihood is it's going to continue through 2024, and then beyond that, I have no idea where it's going to go. But I do think there are lots and lots of questions. And the rumor mill I've heard recently is that Charleston Southern wants to join the ASUN.
That's what I've been hearing too.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah, they want out of the Big South, which is a garbage conference right now. And who knows? As long as Robert Morris goes somewhere else.
Yeah, please don't join the ASUN.
I don't think they're going to be welcome into the ASUN. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be a longer term than we initially thought after COVID happened and these conferences had to align. So,
do you? I got a question though. Do you know anything about, say, for next year scheduling purposes? Because the conference schedule isn't made yet, and so. Is there a chance that we could do what we did last year in 21 and have, cross WAC ASUN scheduling? Because that makes the AQ process obviously a lot harder this year using computer ranking. And so do you know anything if they've talked about that?
Here's what I know. And this was an off the record comment by a coach who I can't mention, but they said, leave these dates open. So they're already planning some kind of cross play for next year, and that would obviously make sense for the AQ if there's cross play. If there's not, and you have to do this power ranking thing again, I think you're going to lose a lot of fans. They're going to be really frustrated that there's no cross play.
Yeah, I know SFA and UCA already have a game on the books next year, so that's at least one down.
Yeah,
that we can use. So we've talked about the rumor mill, with Charleston Southern wanting to come in, which we've all heard. But you personally, who would you like to see join the ASUN or even join the WAC and make this conference even stronger?
The WAC's done a good job, and they have teams that are coming in. Of course, Tarleton is like stepping stone into the FBS and pretty vocal about it. I would love to see Mercer come back into the ASUN. They're a founding member of the ASUN originally. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see them come in. They're a great football team. I think the ASUN could look at some Division II teams in Georgia. Valdosta State and West Georgia both have very quality football programs at the D2 level. So I think that's an option. As far as teams that are in the area right now, Chattanooga, I think Chattanooga would be great. That's literally an hour from Kennesaw. So those teams are options, but you're not going to draw teams out of the Southern Conference more than likely. That's a stable conference with a competitive alignment with the CAA here in the East Coast.
Yeah, I was thinking when I was thinking about teams too, I was like, nobody's going to leave the SoCon because of how stable it is, unless they're jumping up to the next level of football and going to FBS. Other than that, there's no reason to leave them for any of the regional conferences that are nearby. I don't know. I kind of would like to see a team like Southeast Missouri go into the ASUN. I think that would be an awesome add to
as long as it's after Jacksonville State, I'm all for it.
The idea with the Southland was a garbage conference, and a lot of those teams were talking. Nichols was a name that I heard last year that may join the ASUN, and then SLU. But it seems like some
I've heard SLU more than Nichols.
Yeah, I've heard that. The thing with the Southland was under such bad leadership under Tom Burnett. Like he was a terrible commissioner. McNeese was looking to get out. They were looking to join the WAC. And then the new Southland commissioner, basically, they gave McNeese everything they could ever want to stay in. They gave them the basketball tournament. They gave them, I think, the baseball tournament, too. Like, everything is now centered in Lake Charles versus being in Houston, which, honestly, Southland basketball is garbage. I'm fine with them moving it to Lake Charles. That's, football wasn't the reason SFA left the Southland. It was basketball. But that conference is such a hodgepodge. I almost wonder how long A&M Commerce is going to look at them and be like, hey, maybe we should go elsewhere too, because there's not for Commerce where they kind of are, even UIW, the reason why I was kind of surprised UIW stayed in, they're both on islands. Houston Christian University instead of HBU, they're at least 90 minutes from Beaumont. There's at least some localization there, but it's 3 hours to San Antonio. I think Commerce is 4 or 5 hours from Natchitoches. So there's not anything close by in terms of competition in them. So I do personally wonder if they start looking at the WAC or even at the ASUN and saying, hey, we need to go to a different conference.
You're talking about
sorry, Will. I keep interrupting. I was going to say I do think until a commissioner is named, I think you got a lot of instability with the ASUN. And Brandon and I had a great relationship with Kyle Callander of the Big South, the commissioner there, and with the OVC and the Big South joining basically reigns. I think Kyle Callander would be a great pickup for the ASUN. He's experienced. He's a football guy, and I think that would be a huge compliment to the ASUN if they could get somebody like Kyle's pedigree into the conference and get it as quickly as possible. Name them and get them in there, so you got some stability going into the postseason and after the season, off season for college football.
I do think it's important, like you said, to get somebody that is a football guy because obviously it drives realignment. And the ASUN, I think, had some trouble maybe understanding the world of football when it came to – so when Jacksonville State announced they were going to jump up, ASUN's had several schools jump up before, and they, keep them eligible for their conference championships. But I don't think they thought through, hey, they're moving up. They've got extra scholarships. We got to tell them they're not eligible. And so I think that was part of the reason there. And so you've got to name somebody now that understands FCS football or just football in general, the D1 landscape of football, to be able to attract schools with already rich football history. They're, like you said, they're going to want some stability.
Yeah, Jerome Rogers is the next man up for the ASUN conference. He actually ran the media days, and if you saw the media days, it was some of the most boring. I mean, Ted Gumbard is like a fiery guy, and he talks to anybody and about anything. And Jerome was like this monotone, and I'm sure he's a great guy. But I think if you're pulling teams in, I talked to Coach Walden of Austin Peay this past week, and I asked him about the commissioner change, and he said, this was Ted Gumbard's vision. That's why Austin Peay jumped in. This was Ted Gumbard's vision about the ASUN football. So, he had an impact, a positive impact on ASUN football and these teams. When you saw Austin Peay jumping from the OVC, that was a huge deal to get a team like Austin Peay, and it was because of Ted Gumbard. So they need another personality and need it pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I'm interested to see what happens with the future of the ASUN and then also the WACSUN as we call it as we go forward. I enjoy this conference, this confederation, if you will. Like, I absolutely enjoy it. I think you get some really great matchups, that I would love to see annually. Like, I know if the WAC and ASUN were to stop this, I would miss playing UCA all the time. I thoroughly enjoyed our time in the Southland together. Except for their ugly damn field. But, everything else playing them, I absolutely enjoyed.
I enjoyed football because we kicked your ass all the time. But
how many times did you beat us when you were playing? I think only once, maybe twice. You weren't that good against us.
I only played you twice, my guy.
So if you played us during the Clinton Conk era, you kind of got to pass because, that guy was so bad. We took your leftovers. So big mistake by us. So one thing I want to ask, we're to the end of September. and this isn't just for the WAC and ASUN, this can be across the entirety of the FCS because we all do follow across the board. What has been the biggest September surprise to you this year? What team has either completely shocked you in how well they performed or completely shocked you in how bad they've been versus their preseason hype? I know I'm setting SFA up for that one, so I'm just going to drop their name now so we can get past that. But I mean, who's been your September surprise? Brandon, let's start with you.
Even though they kind of had a bombshell this past weekend, it's been Incarnate Word. I was like everybody else. Incarnate Word is not going to be that good. I mean, I thought they were going to make the playoffs regardless, win the Southland, but I did not expect them to start as good as they did. And then this past weekend was just like, what just happened? Saw the last play. Very impressive by SLU, but they're my top choice for who has been the biggest surprise in September.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a good one. That way that game went against SLU. Don't call them C-Log. They're SLU. Completely shocked me with how first of all they lost their starting quarterback. They had a freshman come in and do that, and the fact that the Incarnate Word coverage just completely fell apart on that last play. It's insane to me just how they fell apart. Maybe SLU is that good. Maybe it wasn't just a Cole Kelly sort of thing. Maybe they are a better team than people had given them credit for.
I asked that question on the Big Boy podcast, so we will hear that one answered.
I'm sure. I am absolutely sure we will. Nathan, what about you? Who's been your September surprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brandon nailed it. UIW, I think, was everyone's. SIU is a big just fell flat on their face early in the season, then pick up an FBS win. So that was pretty impressive. I had SIU. I thought they played extremely well. For the ASUN WAC, obviously Kennesaw State is a huge letdown, and SFA was a huge letdown. As much as I think of Colby Carthel, he'll put it together. But I didn't realize losing the 4 coaches that they lost was going to have that big of an impact. And he compared it on our podcast. He's like, don't look at us of what we were last year. Look at us maybe 3 years ago, because we're starting to, have to get the chemistry back on the coaching staff. So that was a big letdown. Very excited for Austin Peay. When you come out and have a homecoming game against EKU, who's on such a high, and you're able to put it together like that. Mike DeLillo did not look good in the first half. I mean, I'm thinking, we did the interview last week with him. I'm thinking he's never coming on our podcast again. He's going to blame us. It's like superstition or whatever. And next thing you know, he runs for 180 yards or whatever it was. So, yeah, I mean, Austin Peay is a very pleasant surprise. What Coach Walden's doing down there is pretty cool. Young coach. I think it's always fun to see like a new, vibrant, energetic coach on the sideline, and he is that coach. I think out of everybody, gosh, I think South Dakota State's offense has been a huge letdown. Matter of fact, I picked Missouri State to beat them this weekend because they're not getting any pressure on their quarterbacks. Their defense doesn't look that great, and their offense doesn't look that strong. But yet they hang around 2 and 3 in the country, and I don't think that they're that good of a football team. Well, I shouldn't say that. Relatively, they're not as good as what I think North Dakota State is, and maybe even Weber State, who disappointed this weekend. But I think South Dakota State's got some problems ahead of them.
One thing too, before we go to you, Will, I want to call out Austin Peay fans. It was homecoming, and you couldn't get 10,000 people there. I understand that Tennessee was playing at the same time, but your team wears black and red, not orange, and Rocky Top is a horrible fight song. There, I said it. Rocky Top is terrible. You should have been there. Because of this, we had to give Will extra points in the
let me down.
Pick-em.
They let me down.
Disappointing. Game like that, disappointing. So, Govs Nation, disappointed in you. All right, Will, what about you?
Yeah, so everybody kind of took everyone that I had lined up, so I'm kind of going off the cut here, but I'm going to say SEMO, just because they've been impressive, and they're one of those teams that's quietly moved to 3-1, and they're 3-0 against the FCS, and they've looked impressive. They won the rivalry game at Southern Illinois. They beat us at home, and then obviously they beat the crap out of Nichols last week. So Geno Hess looks really good. He's a big, strong back that runs very well. Paxton DeLaurent looks good. He can really throw the ball. He's a tall, big quarterback. So I think the way their line of scrimmage was against us, their offensive and defensive lines, they dominated us, and we've played really well defensively on the line all year, and so they got after us. So I'm going to say SEMO, because I think if Martin is down at all, they'll win the OVC, and if they don't lose another game, they're starting conference schedule. If they don't lose another game, you could see them pick up a seed. So I'm going to go with SEMO.
I'm looking to see when SEMO and Martin play.
I think it's later in the season.
I think they avoid them, actually.
Yes, they do avoid
They avoid them this year. Yeah.
They play Lindenwood, Tech, Northwestern State. They do play Eastern Kentucky, so that'll be an interesting one. Eastern Illinois and Murray. So they avoid Martin. So
wow.
So
that's an interesting scheduling quirk there.
I didn't think there was enough teams in the OVC for them to avoid Martin. That's interesting.
I have another one just because I don't think anybody will even think about this team.
If you take mine, I'm going to be mad at you.
Elon?
No, God, no. I don't.
Okay. Elon has actually kind of impressed me this year. Kind of hung around with Vandy, destroyed Wofford, struggled against Gardner-Webb, and then out of nowhere comes and beats a hyped up William and Mary team from the FCS world. After William and Mary, what was the FBS team they beat?
Charlotte.
Yeah, they beat Charlotte. Come on, but Charlotte's a glorified FCS team. So.
Still, it's an FBS win. Elon, everybody thought Elon was going to be the bottom feeder of the CA. They may still be, but they actually beat a really good William and Mary team. After they're inconsistent, but I'm impressed that they're 3-1 right now.
Hey, can I let you know, Brandon Joseph, number one, his wife's pregnant. Her due date's today. So we want to wish Brandon Joseph all the best. His first child is going to be born this week. But he's been ringing the Elon bell since before the season started, that they were pretty good. And so I got to give him all the credit, because when he said he picked them to beat William and Mary this weekend, I'm like, no way. I saw the final score. I'm, throwing stuff. But yeah, he's been ringing that bell. He said Elon's a pretty good football program. He's got to put it together and be more consistent.
Attaboy, Brandon. Congrats on the baby. Welcome to the world of no sleep.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, you ready? He said, I'm ready. The mama's ready. He said, but the baby's not ready. I said, you're learning a valuable lesson in parenting right now. Hey, the baby starts dictating your life starting as soon as it takes its first breath. So
exactly.
Awesome.
Well, my team, and you follow me on this one, because I still am not sure if they should be ranked in the top 25 yet. And I had a discussion with Kyler Neal about it, but I am repping them for those of you watching on YouTube. It is Joe. It is the Idaho Vandals. Like, if you look at their performances against Washington State and Indiana, they played really well. They had Washington State. I thought they were actually going to pull that game out. And then they played really well the past couple weeks too. I mean, yes, they beat up on Drake, which I mean, who doesn't beat up on Drake? But they did pretty much decimate Northern Arizona, who did beat Sam Houston, and UND barely squeaked out a win against them. They've got Northern Colorado this week, who probably is the best football team in Colorado at the moment, because neither the Buffs or the Rams have a win right now. But then after that, they get a bye. And then I think the true test of how far Eck has taken this team is on October 15th, when they travel to Missoula and they play Montana. I believe they play for the Stein. I think they're Little Brown Jug. I can't remember what it is. One of the two. It's on the list I have next. But they play in that one, and I mean, that's going to be, I think it'll be a true test of how far they come. Eck is one hell of a coach. He did a great job at South Dakota State, and I think, to your point, South Dakota State's kind of seeing the impact of Eck not being there anymore this year. And so if there's anyone who's going to turn around Vandal football, get the crowd going in that half of a beer can they play in called the Kiwi Dome, it's Eck. So Idaho would be my team. That is the September surprise, and I hope to see more out of them over the next month.
And their defense is really, really good. I mean, they're putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback and stopping the run. So, yeah, that's a good pick. I would throw in Mercer on the heap. I think Mercer. Everyone kind of looked at the Southern Conference and said, Chattanooga, ETSU, Mercer maybe was in the conversation. Furman was in the conversation. I think Mercer's got a clear path to the Southern Conference championship if they want it. They just can't stub their toe. But as they're entering conference play, I think they're the favorite.
Yep, no, I 100% agree with that. And yeah, it was a little Brown Stein. So I don't want Chris Hammond to get mad at me for getting the wrong trophy on here. He's going to call me at like 3 a.m. whenever he podcasts, because the dude never sleeps. And he's going to be like, hey, you messed up. Anyway, so speaking of, this is rivalry week because we have JSU and KSU, and then we have the Battle of Piney Woods. Each week we've had a game to test out Will and Brandon's FCS knowledge. Nathan, I don't know if you've actually listened to this, but when they did geography, man,
it was awful.
It's brutal.
It was so bad.
He didn't exactly throw us any bones, though. So
it was like when Sanford beat up on KSU. It was just disappointing. I expected better out of them, and they just completely failed me. They got a little bit of redemption last week there with that game. So since it's rivalry week, we're going to do a little rivalry trivia. Nathan, you can play if you want. If you're listening, play along. Let me know how many you get, and someone will send you something. I think we owe that Northern Alabama guy something. What's his name, Will? Brandon
Haddock.
Brandon Haddock.
Yeah.
Brandon Haddock, if you're listening.
He plays all our games with us.
Yeah. Brandon Haddock, if you're listening, DM me on Twitter at the RevSFA. Let me know your address. I'll get something sent to you. It may not be Northern Alabama, though. We may have to differentiate on FCS gear you have, but we will get you something to you. So this game is pretty easy. It's really simple. I'm going to name the teams. You name the game. Okay? So we'll use this one as an example. Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin is
Battle of the Piney Woods.
Okay, see, pretty easy. So there are some pretty hard ones on here. So like if I turned around and said, let's use this one, Delaware and Villanova. See, exactly.
That was an
example. That's not a real one. But see, there's some ones you guys I know you're not going to know because you've never read a book, and it's the Battle of the Blue.
I was going to say, is there something blue? It's a blue trophy or something.
There you go. Yeah, see, look.
Yeah, something like that.
See, at least Nathan reads. I guess you guys know. All right, so ready? Here's the first one. It is Northwestern State and Stephen F. Austin.
Chief Caddo.
There it is. Will's got one. Sorry, Brandon.
That's the largest trophy in all of NCAA rivalry games, I think.
I believe so. I know it's the largest in D1. It's 7 feet 6 inches tall.
It's huge.
It is massive. I have a photo of me next to it. I'm just like, damn. Whenever I stand next to it, like they had to take out the ceiling tiles and store it in the field house. Like it is just absolutely massive. All right, guys. Montana State.
Brawl of the Wild.
There it is. 1-1. That's a good one.
I mean, I knew that one. So.
Are we naming the trophy or the game?
Oh, so the name of the game is Brawl of the Wild. Do you know the name of the trophy?
That's the Great Divide.
There you go. Get Nathan on the board. That is correct. You can name the trophy too, and I'll count it because a lot of the games represent the trophy as well. Yeah. But then some of them they have a name, and then they have a different thing for the trophy, which is you can't keep it simple for someone who's trying to do trivia. All right. So since we talked about the service academies earlier, VMI and the Citadel.
I don't know that one.
Got to be something commander something.
It is not. And Will, if you see Kevin in Frisco, he's gonna kill me. Matt, he's gonna kill you. He is gonna force you to have SoCo kamikazes, and it is the military classic of the South, and they play for the Silver Shako, and the Silver Shako looks like a corn dog.
Oh, all right.
I've not Google Silver Shako. And Will, I know you want to do it now. Go ahead and Google it real quick. It looks like a silver hot dog.
Silver what? Shako?
Silver Shako. SHAKO.
AKO.
Yeah, the Silver Shako, and it looks like a silver corn dog.
Oh my god!
Oh, it's like a military hat. Okay,
that plume is awful.
That is bad.
It is so bad. All right, let's go to one that I hope you know. If not, the boss is going to fire you. North Dakota State and South Dakota State.
Dakota Marker.
There you go. Good one. Now, just a bonus point. You know what North Dakota and North Dakota State play for?
The marker.
No, North Dakota and North Dakota State.
Yeah,
it's the
silver nickel.
The silver nickel. There it is. The silver nickel.
They both got that one.
Yeah, they did. Well, I think Brandon's owning you on this one. But let's do one that I think you should know.
Tied.
I think you are tied. So we'll have two more. Nichols and SLU.
River Bell.
There you go.
Yeah. I know my Southland rivalries.
Yeah,
in that league for a while.
I know that one is pretty easy. And here's one that is pretty funny. I didn't realize this was one. I'm gonna just say it anyway. I want to see what you can guess what this is. The Citadel and Wofford.
I know what that one is.
You do know what that one is?
In the Battle of the Big Dog or something?
It is the Big Dog trophy, because it's
the Big Dogs.
It's the Bulldogs and the Terriers. So
mine was a good guess.
I mean, it really absolutely was a good guess. I got to give you guys one more. Did you guys decide a name for the JSU KSU rivalry? Nate?
I think last year we had talked like Battle for the Silver Comet Trophy or something like that.
Yeah, the Chief Ladiga or
Chief Ladiga or something like that.
Yeah, or the Silver Comet Trophy. It kind of lost its steam when they went FBS and we knew they weren't going to be a rival anymore.
That's pretty frustrating. Like, I think that would be I think that would be
just come with us.
I think it should be the Battle of the Grub Mart. There's a Grub Mart. There's a little place, little service station there outside the stadium called the Grub Mart. Matter of fact,
outside of y'all stadium?
No, it's outside of y'all stadium.
I know that's mine. That's ours, but
yeah, we don't have a Grub Mart, unfortunately.
I was about to say there's a Grub Mart over there.
No. And when they all the videos started popping off of the first female kicker, Jacksonville State had the first female kicker to score points in NCAA college. There's a huge Grub Mart sign in the background of that kick, and every time I'm like, yes,
free advertising.
Free advertising.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm looking for one that I think one of y'all will get, and I'm pretty sure the rest of these you're not going to know.
I'll give you one, but you can't answer because I know you know it. So this is for Nathan and Brandon. Do you know?
I was going to use that one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you can use that one.
Go ahead.
The UCA and McNeese rivalry.
It's the
Iron Pot or Iron.
No.
Iron Bowl? Oh, crap.
Red something.
No, it's 50 pound pot or something.
It probably weighs 50 pounds.
Oh.
Actually, Nathan McCreary is correct, because the name of the trophy is the 50-pound iron pot.
Yeah, 50 pounds.
That's the name of the trophy.
The red beans and rice.
Red beans and rice bowl.
Yeah.
50-pound iron pot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the name of the trophy because it's not on there.
Wow, don't even know your team.
I've held that trophy, baby.
And how do you not know?
It's not on the.
Does it weigh 50 pounds?
Probably, yeah. It's pretty heavy. There's
pound.
I didn't know it was called that, though. We just always call it the red beans and rice bowl.
That may not be the official name.
No, it per Wikipedia, and if it's on Wikipedia, it's true.
That's right.
It is absolutely 100% accurate that it is the 50-pound iron pot. Well, guys, that's enough games. I'm going to say Nathan won because I really didn't score. So,
I get that other guy's UNA hat. You're gonna
you can. Yes, you can get that UNA hat. I will send you some UNA swag. So, so at some point these two knuckleheads are going to get their geographic redemption. I just got to figure out when we're going to do it to let you guys make up for just how bad you were the first time we did a game.
And the Rev doesn't let it go, does he?
I'm just saying, I expect better out of my partners.
I like it.
I don't know. Just
All right.
It up. All right, let's talk about next week's games because there are a whole bunch of good ones.
It's time to preview some Week 5. It's hard to believe that it is Week 5 of college football season.
Should I hold this up again for when JSU is brought up?
Yeah, probably. First game on the schedule, and I never put UCA first, but Rev always does for whatever reason. Austin Peay, UCA, 4-1 Austin Peay coming to the Stripes. Preseason, this was the second game of what I thought was a winnable stretch of games for UCA, and I don't know, Austin Peay looks pretty good. Mike DeLillo is he's a dude. He's my guy. I've been pumping him up all year. So I'm interested to see how we hold up. So I'll get you guys' thoughts because everybody knows what mine are going to be. So Nathan, we'll start with you.
I think this is going to be Darius Hale versus Josh Samuels in the running game for Austin Peay. If Darius Hale can get started and get running, then I think UCA is going to hang tight. But DeLillo's a game manager. That's kind of what he's been so far. He knows when to pull it down. He knows when to run it. He's pretty athletic. He's had some really bad interceptions. He's had 2 pick sixes in their 4 games. So I think Austin Peay is gonna pick up the win in this one. I just don't think UCA's put it together so far. But if they could get Darius Hale started and McElvain to kind of be a game manager himself and not make mistakes, I think UCA should hang tight. But I think Austin Peay is going to win this football game.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. Like, I know I can save y'all a couple minutes and tell you who Will's gonna pick, but I know that UCA is a good team. They're just not there yet. And I think Austin Peay is just right now currently playing on a different level than UCA is. I know the game's on the stripes, which always do have some sort of impact, but I think it's going to be the Governors in this one, especially coming off of the win over EKU. That's a lot of momentum to have going in. So sorry, Will. I do like the Bears, but I think it's the Govs.
All right.
Yeah, I think UCA is actually going to keep it close because it is at the stripes, and UCA always has a good home field advantage. But I think our former Gamecock running back and the Govs are going to get it done.
It's unfortunate. We could make a 10,000 bet on UCA's crowd this week. It's Family Day and Band Day, and so the crowd would normally
Dang.
But listen. Arkansas plays Alabama and Fayetteville.
Yeah, I was like, it is Bama, Arkansas weekend.
So I don't know who scheduled that one.
What time? What's the difference of times?
Arkansas plays, I believe, at 2:30 because they're the CBS game, and we play at 4. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, never.
All right, so Central Arkansas fans, if you're listening to this, you don't wear red and white. You wear purple and black and white. You don't need to call the Hogs for one weekend.
You can watch. You probably can't get tickets to the game in Fayetteville anyway. Watch it on your phone in the stands if you want. I don't care, but sit in the stands, wear purple.
Listen, your kicker's just going to doink it off the top of the upright anyway. I wouldn't even waste your time. Go watch it. Go watch a better game. Go watch UCA and Austin Peay.
That's right. I tell you what. I think as long as UCA doesn't fall flat on their face in one aspect of the game, we can keep it close. And if it's close going into the fourth quarter, who knows what happens? That's kind of how I am with UCA. If it's a game going into the fourth quarter, I think we'll be okay. But so far this season, we've had special teams hiccups in 2 games, and it's really cost you the game. It was a 13-point swing against Missouri State, 2 missed field goals, and a KOR touchdown. KOR touchdown against SEMO as well. So if you can play well in all 3 phases, I think you can. I don't think you're a inferior team to Austin Peay. I don't think that's it. I think that you've got to play well and you got to put the 3 phases together and play a complete game, and I think you'll be okay. Can we do that? We'll see. So you all know who I would pick. So we'll move right along into honestly a pretty interesting game. Southern Utah, Eastern Kentucky. Southern Utah is another team that has quietly moved into a 3-1 record to start the year. And EKU coming off, obviously, the tough loss to Austin Peay. This is really the first true test, I would say, for Southern Utah, other than the University of Utah. But we know how that goes. So what are you guys' thoughts on this matchup? It is in Richmond. Anybody can go.
I like Southern Utah. I really do. I like Coach Fitzgerald. I like what he's doing out there. The fact, they are 3-1. Granted, they haven't played world beaters here. They beat Utah Tech in the first of 2 rounds of a rivalry game. They beat Western Illinois and Macomb, which, they went and beat a Missouri Valley team, which is great. They're garbage, Western Illinois, but they still got the win. Like I said, they're quietly 3-1. I just, going into Richmond, playing in Richmond is always an interesting thing. Having to get to Richmond is always an interesting thing as well, because it is a bear to get to. I don't see Eastern Kentucky collapsing like they did against Austin Peay. I don't think Southern Utah has the same amount of talent that Austin Peay has at the moment. I think, we talked about UCA being, being a year from being a top 10 team, top 15 team. In my opinion, I think Southern Utah is probably 3 years out, 2 to 3 years out. You got to let Coach Fitzgerald get his players in, but you can see the paradigm shift that he is bringing to Cedar City. So while I love you, Coach, I don't think you're going to get this one. I think the Colonels win. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I would say probably 14, 17 points. I would give it to EKU.
Well, I'll tell you. Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I'm going to keep it short and simple. I don't think EKU is going to struggle at all. It's at home. EKU by three scores.
Okay, so I like Delane Fitzgerald. I think he's building something there, but he had a wholesale changes. They brought in over 50 new players to this roster. One of the new players was a kid named Isaiah Woods. He's a wide receiver transfer from Kent State. He has been fantastic. He's already got over 400 yards receiving, 47 and 20. I'm sorry. Let's see. 399 yards, 14 receptions, 4 touchdowns. He leads the WAC in all-purpose yards right now. Coach Fitzgerald said Justin Miller is a poor man's Tom Brady. So I think that those are, and he's done some great things this year, but I don't think one or two pieces is going to be enough for Southern Utah to hang with EKU. Number one, EKU is going to be pissed. They're going to be at home, and they're going to have a rowdy crowd there at Roy Kidd, and I think that's probably going to be overcome. You're going to see some Southern Utah do some good things, but I think EKU is going to be too much for them this weekend.
I think I'm sitting with you guys on this one. I have Eastern Kentucky 37, and I picked an arbitrary score just to kind of say the width. EKU 37, Southern Utah 14. I think Eastern Kentucky is just a superior team. Parker McKinney, he's a dude. He's one of my guys. I think he will be a difference maker in that game. Moving on, Abilene Christian, Utah Tech, 3-1 Abilene, and 1-3 Utah Tech. So. This is interesting because Abilene hasn't really played a super tough schedule. I mean, they played Missouri. They hung tough with Missouri, lost by 17. Now, some of their scores were in garbage time or garage time, as Jack Rabbit Illustrated likes to call it. So I'm a little bit intrigued by this one. I think it'll be closer maybe than some people think, and I think Utah Tech has a chance. So we'll start with you, Brandon. What do you see out of this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think with how Utah Tech has been doing their scheduling ever since they moved up, they've been playing some of the toughest teams in the FCS, and that has only made them a much better team. I think this season, doing the same thing when you get to a team like Abilene Christian, who isn't bad but isn't good either, I think it could play a big advantage as to like talent versus talent. So I think this is going to be a close game, and I'm actually going to pick Utah Tech in this one.
See, I got to disagree with you. Abilene Christian, they are the Toyota Corolla of the WAC. We said this. They're dependable. They're going to get you wins. They're not going to necessarily be against world beaters, but they're going to get you wins against teams that aren't great. Granted, yes, they did play Western New Mexico last week. They're actually down at the end of the first quarter of Western New Mexico too, and then they turned it on. Ethan Long came in though from Maverick McElvore, and he had himself a game, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked great. They had a run back tandem with Dobbins, who's played well so far this year, and then they had Banks in there as well, getting 2 touchdowns. Coach Patterson is doing the right thing there. I like you. I mean, I have a soft spot for Utah Tech. I think they're not as good as Abilene Christian truly is right now. So I would love to see Utah Tech get the win, but I think it's going to be Abilene Christian.
Yeah, Abilene Christian brought in 19 transfers, most of them from FBS programs, including Ethan Long, who took over for Maverick McIver, who was started 0 for 4, and the offense was stalled. So expect Ethan Long to get his first start, and I think, and he's a transfer. Gosh, he's from VMI, and then spent some time at Maryland, I think. And Maverick McIver from Texas Tech. They've got some guys there, some dudes there in that quarterback room. I like what Coach Patterson's doing there, and I think that EKU is not going to have any problem at all with Utah Tech.
I was always surprised that they went with McElvore first. I know he came in from Tech. I know Patterson knew him from a previous role, but they had Peyton Mansell still, who was still, he knew how to. I mean, he knew how to play in Abilene. He knew the offense, that they had there. I was kind of surprised that they didn't go with him with the experience he had. And then, of course, too, with having Ethan Long there, I was really still surprised they went McElroy even over Ethan Long. I think Ethan Long's the better quarterback of the two. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this week if Long does get his first start and what he can do against the Blazers.
Peyton Mansell changed his position to defensive back and got his first interception this week. So, so I am too. He's just an athlete, and it sounds like Coach Patterson's doing some good things there with the Wildcats, which they haven't had some good news coming out of Abilene for a long time.
Yep.
I'm high on Kobe Tracy from Utah Tech, the quarterback. He's already thrown for almost 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and they've put up points. They put up 33 on Sac State, 14 on Weber, which is the most that Weber's given up all year, including their FBS matchup with Utah State. So I'm high on the offense from Utah Tech, and so I'm going to roll with the Trailblazers in a close one. I think this is a game they can win, and so I'm going to roll with them. That's my gut, is that they're going to win. So moving on to the first of 2 rivalries, Kennesaw
Can we
State.
skip this, please? I do not want to pick this game.
Nobody cares. Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State in the battle for the Silver Comet Trail. Is that what we're calling it?
The Comet bathroom cleaner. That's what I heard.
Yes.
The battle of just move on to the FBS already.
the battle of Rich Rod and a co-ed.
Quickly come to Conference USA.
Oh gosh. So this one, I don't think I'll just go ahead and pick it. I think Jacksonville State rolls. I don't know. I don't think it's the Jacksonville State of old. If it was last year and John Gross was at the helm, I could see a Jacksonville State collapse. But I love him or hate him, Rich Rod, he's got his guys ready for the most part all year, or at least if they haven't been ready, they've been ready after halftime. And so I'm going to roll Jacksonville State pretty big because I think the defense for Kennesaw State is pretty suspect.
Yeah, let me get my pick in so you two can start bickering over this game. So I honestly, that we kind of talked about earlier, Kennesaw State, there's so many unanswered questions that they have right now, especially on their defense. And the way that Rich Rod's offense works, he just takes advantage of defenses that are struggling. Look at what they did against Stephen F. Austin, just absolutely obliterated the defense, and they SFA have their own unanswered questions on defense. So I gotta, as much as I hate to do it, I gotta give it to Jacksonville State, those jerks. But yeah, I gotta lean with Jacksonville State on this one over the Owls. But you never know. This game is always interesting. Every time you expect Jacksonville State to go in and get a win in the old era, Kennesaw State managed to do it, but I don't see history repeating this year.
All right, boys, no shots below the belt.
Just keep it clean.
I think we're probably going to agree. Yeah, I think we're probably going to agree. I think Kennesaw State is in a position they've never been in before, which is, we mentioned it before, no identity, not able to get the rushing yards, and I really believe that they're going to struggle against Jacksonville State. 85 scholarships versus 63, and I just don't think that it's going to be an SFA type game. I think Kennesaw State may hang with them for a quarter and a half, and next thing you know, Jacksonville's going to put 50, 60 points on them, and Kennesaw State's going to be standing there, very, very happy that Jacksonville State is moving up to the FBS.
I do not want to pick this game.
If you notice, I never pick the UCA game anymore. I just don't say it. So you don't have to.
We know who Will's going with, anyway. So
we could be playing freaking Alabama, and I'm still not going to pick it.
I think who wins this game depends all on who starts at quarterback for KSU. Is it going to be Jonathan or is it going to be Xavier?
Yeah, you're asking the wrong person. I think if you're Coach Bohannon, you probably stick with Jonathan Murphy because he played well.
Okay.
But I don't have any inside information on that at all.
If it's Jonathan, KSU has a chance, in my opinion. Oh, God. It's at home. I want to pick Jacksonville State, but history is telling me something else. I'm going KSU.
Wow. You know what I would love to see, though? I would love to see KSU come out and Jacksonville State's expecting them to run some version of the triple option, and they throw. They throw
run
the
the
entire
spread.
first drive. They throw the entire first drive. That would completely throw off everything that Rich Rod had planned for. And I would just love to see it. Like, I'm not saying they're going deep and throwing bombs, but man, they're throwing short routes, just moving the ball like that, like 4 or 5 yard passes. It would completely throw off Rich Rod's defensive game plan. And I think I'd be here for it. Like, I would love it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see it.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Kennesaw State has under 250 yards rushing.
That's a good over-under bet.
I think this is going to be a lot like 2018 without all of the overtimes. I think it's going to be a battle all the way down to the wire, and I think KSU is going to get the job done.
What makes you think that? Is it just because it's a rivalry game? Because, I mean, looking at what JSU has done against every opponent.
Because JSU hasn't been successful against KSU.
But it's reverse psychology.
It's reverse psychology. I get what he's doing.
He's trying to pick Kennesaw so he doesn't get heartbroken.
And then of course he doesn't get shredded the following week whenever if the upset were to happen.
Hey, I have a healthy lead in the standings, so
you got a 1-game lead. That's not healthy.
So speaking of the standings, if you don't know what we're talking about, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to throw these up. Our game of the week standings here. I threw together a little bit of a graphic just so we could see a visual representation of how bad I have been this year. And Nathan, I don't know if you listen to this normally, but I have not picked like with my heart other than the UCA Missouri State game, and that was a toss-up. Like, I legitimately thought they could win it, and I have picked with my head. I picked an FBS team to beat an FCS team and got burned. Well,
that's how it goes, right? That's how it always goes. The more research you do, the worse your record's going to be. That's why all of our girlfriends, wives, fiancés, whatever, would beat us in fantasy football just by throwing a dart at the board, just because we're analytical and we overanalyze things, and then we lose it. So yeah, I'm with you.
My mom and my fiance win March Madness every year because
I told you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I pick games that I think could be upsets, and they just pick who has the prettiest colors. So. Anyway, so that's our standings for the week. We'll update it as we go. And Rev, I cropped out most of the picture, obviously, but that was a nice little selfie in the pool.
It doesn't bother me. Yeah.
I feel like that's the only pictures I have other than you shirtless in Frisco is you with a beer in the pool. It's like I don't know what you do most of the time other than drink beer in a pool. But I'm jealous.
Should I send you pictures from? I'm going to send you a picture tomorrow from work. Just
okay,
please on a call.
I've got one from a trade show one time, I think, and that was it because you were in a shell shirt. But
I took a picture of that and I sent it to the group chat, and I was just like, sneak peek for tomorrow.
So that's a good lead, though, into our game of the week, the 96th installment of the Battle of the Piney Woods, Sam Houston and SFA. Does anybody know off the top of their head what the series record is? Like, who's leading and how many?
It's a lot to a little. I used to know it a few years ago. I guess I should take that.
I've got it in front of me. I just wondered if anybody knew it.
It's something like, isn't it like 50? I can't remember if it's 50 something, 40 something, or 60 something, 30 something.
It's close.
It's like,
yeah, you're very close.
59-35 or 59-34 somewhere.
Yeah, it's somewhere up there. The past 12 years haven't helped that number.
The old Wikipedia told me it was 63-28, and Sam Houston is on a 10-year win streak.
12
since 2011, and you can't talk about the Battle of the Piney Woods without talking about the Flanders Flip. It's our background right now. I was going to play the YouTube video, but I figured we get copyrighted. It's the background. You can't see it, so I'm going to throw it up. The coolest play in the history of the Battle of the Piney Woods. Just look at the reactions.
Yeah,
that is just awesome.
If you look, for those of you who are on the FCS Fans Nation page, you will see actually a member who posts on there named Victor right there in the front. Right there. And another story was I actually did his wedding.
You did Victor's wedding?
I did Victor's wedding.
That's awesome. Yeah, I thought that was Victor when I saw it, but I didn't know.
Yeah, right there front row. And I was actually that year, I think I was actually supposed to be sitting near him and Lee, who he usually sits with. And then I changed and took my regular seats. Thank God, or else I would have been in that picture. So it worked out really well to not sit with him.
That play is iconic, and he very nearly stuck the landing. So love that play. If you have time, you should go search the video if you're listening to this, because
you don't need to. You don't. I'm just kidding. No, I mean it's a hell of a play. And Tim Flanders was a hell of a running back, doing good things up in Canada in the CFL. But one heck of a guy to watch. Like, as much as I hate Sam, like, you couldn't hate Tim Flanders for how good of a player he was.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about the game. Obviously, Sam Houston coming off a bye, and SFA pretty much coming off a bye. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Rev, we'll go to you last because it is your team. So Brandon, will go with you first, and then Nathan, and then Rev.
Sam Houston is one of those teams that we don't know a whole lot about. They've underperformed than what we thought they were going to perform. Looking at some of the stats, I mean, SFA is just murdering Sam Houston in almost every single stat. SFA we know a little bit about. I think last week's game was, even though they played, it was a rest game, but I think blowing out any kind of football team 98-0 is going to be a confidence boost, or it should be a confidence boost. I think it's going to play a huge role into going into the Battle of the Piney Woods. I'm picking SFA.
Right now your leading rusher for Sam Houston is Jordan Yates. He's kind of become the face of that football program after Schmid and Ezard and all those great names. And I don't think that he's a great athlete. I don't think he's a great football player. I don't think he's a great football manager. I don't think he has a lot of pieces around him. I think with losing your coordinator, I think Casey Keeler's kind of lost and scrounged. They're only scoring 10 points per game this year. Yep. And I think SFA is going to come in fired up. Look, the 98-0, it doesn't even count. It's a NAIA. It's a statistic that, Rev kind of covers his face, but it's a statistic that you'll look back and go, oh, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter, in a grand scheme of things. You kind of got to work on some things. It's an extra practice, and now you got to go into the Battle of the Piney Woods in a very big atmosphere, and likely the last ever Battle of the Piney Woods because of the jump to FBS. And Coach Carthel said on our show, we're not doing this for free. I'm not signing a contract with Sam Houston just to get our butts whipped by an FBS opponent just out of emotion, because the Battle of the Piney Woods is a good program. They're going to pay us a big check. So likely the last time this happens for the foreseeable future. I think SFA is going to be fired up. I don't think Sam Houston has the pieces. I don't think they've put it together this year. Of course, anything can happen. With 1 point loss last year, I'm going to say it's a 1 point victory for SFA this year.
Yeah, this game is really hard to pick, and there's just a couple of things behind it. One, it is the last dance. I'm actually sitting with some of my good friends who did go to Sam Houston. We're doing this together because it is the last time until either we move or Sam Houston can afford to pay us to go there, which that's going to be a while because of where they are. Sam Houston to me this year has just been, I didn't realize the impact that Cardi had as their offensive coordinator. And then seeing them be in shambles this year, I mean, it took them 9 quarters to score a touchdown. He got beat by a bad Northern Arizona team. Granted, they turned it around A&M Commerce, but again, that was only a 10-point victory against a transitioning in team. You're not seeing the playmakers that you had seen before. You're not seeing the Jaquez Ezard type player. You're not seeing the Eric Smith type throws. You're just not seeing it anymore. And the holes that they have on defense is just insane with what they lost. And their offensive line can't protect their quarterback. But on the flip side, they can run the ball. That's one thing they can do. They're not throwing very well, but they can run the ball, and that's been SFA's weakness this year, defending the run. And so if they can capitalize on that, they can get down the field. But SFA's got a good pass defense. Their front seven is good at getting in at the quarterback, and that could really help them out. On offense, it was nice to see. Granted, yeah, like Nathan said, 98-0. Who cares? I need to get the sign out again one more time, but who cares, right? 98-0. It's nice to see Xavier Gibson get the ball, get some touches because he hadn't. But again, who cares? This game is one of those games where you throw out everything that's going on. It's just one of those things. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I'm anxious about it. Because also, too, if SFA loses this game, this will probably officially dash any sort of hopes of getting an at-large bid to the playoffs because they won't have enough D1 wins even if they went out. So a lot more is riding on this game than just the rivalry. There's a law of averages, and at some point SFA has to win this game. It's one of those things that has to happen. So as much as if this wasn't game of the week, I would pick Sam, using the reverse psychology, but seeing as how there are standings involved in this one, I got to pick SFA because I do think that at the moment they're the more put together team out of the two. But you never know, right? It's just going to be one of those games you absolutely never know what's going to happen. Looking forward to it, but man, like it's Kyler Neal, who for those of y'all who are listening, he does the Big Boy Show and he does Eagles Power Hour. And up north, he's actually going with me to this game because he lives in the area. And I told him, I was like, man, I would have loved for you to go last year instead, because I think the quality of the game was a better game last year than this year. But no, I'm gonna take SFA begrudgingly because of the standings. Actually, wait, Brandon, you picked SFA.
Yeah.
See, now, do I pick Sam and go against my gut, and then no, I'm going to stay. We'll take SFA. We'll stick with SFA. So that's who it's going to be.
Yeah, seeing as you all picked SFA, I should probably just start picking with you guys because I'm not doing too well picking on my own. But we can talk X's and O's with these two teams as much as we want, and neither team has been uber impressive at all. But I will say Sam Houston, every time they take the field, has just not looked like they've enjoyed being there. It's like we're here because we have to be. Casey Keeler, you kind of alluded to it. He looks lost right now. Like, I don't know if he's just kind of floating through this 9-game transition season or what.
I think they are. I think they're focused on the move.
And I think they may
That's
be
a little bad thing, though. That's such a bad thing.
They may be a little concerned about the move because I know they're positioning themselves for a further down the line realignment process, but you got to focus on the here and now. You got to try and win ball games now. And I'm not saying they're not trying to win them, but I don't know that it's the most important thing on their plate right now, in the back of their mind. And so I think it's going to be a close game because I do think Sam Houston, obviously they've got athletes, and it is a rivalry game. So I don't think it'll be a blowout either way. So I'm going to go 1 point win for your Lumberjacks, Rev. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what the score is going to be. Hopefully you guys can get Xavier Gibson going. I think that would really help you guys. Obviously it would help you guys, but if Casey Keeler sells out to stop Xavier Gibson, it may be a little bit of a long night, but I'm going to say your Lumberjacks pull it out.
Yeah, you guys touched on this, and I didn't. The 9-game season, I mean, it's almost like they're just going through the motions because they have nothing to play for this year. And I'm like, that's not true. Because you also want to be an inviting program for transfers. And at the same time, if you're looking to leave, you want to look like you're worth taking as a transfer. So I think the mentality is wrong. And I would love for any Sam Houston fan who's listening to say I'm wrong, but that's just kind of what it feels like, that they're just going through the motions of this season to get into the CUSA next year. And Sam's not in a good spot for this transition. We've said this on this multiple times. JSU is in such a much better financial spot than Sam Houston is. And when you look at Sam Houston that's out of conference games, I mean, there's no way like playing Hawaii is going to bring anybody into Bowers. Like, I mean, they're the only game their fans show up to is the Battle of Piney Woods in Houston. Their fans can't be troubled to drive an hour north to go to Huntsville. And that's not going to help them at the next level because none of those games scream, wow. They have to get someone like Texas State, who was a historic rival, back on the schedule. And I assume they will at some point. But until then, until you're getting butts in the seats, you're not making any money. They don't their marketing sucks too. That's the other thing. They hired in they brought in a new guy to hopefully turn marketing around, and I honestly hope he does, because their marketing is god awful. There's no like pizzazz. It's like, oh, we're going to Conference USA. I guess we'll see you Saturday as we play A&M Commerce. Like, there's nothing bringing in the crowd. Their stadium needs so much rehab and work. And I say this as someone who plays in a dump of a stadium too. Sorry, SFA admin, if you're listening, you've done a great job on the turf and everything, but stands, not in the best shape. Bowers needs a lot of work, needs a lot of renovation, needs a lot of love. Right now, there's not a visiting locker room at Bowers because they started renovating the locker rooms instead of focusing on the stands first, because no one's going to be in the stands. Why wouldn't you start there? Anyway, like it's just their program's not where you would have expected them to be, giving recent performance. And I think it's just, in talking about it now, it's just absolutely shocking to me that they've let themselves get to that point this year.
Well, one thing that we talked to Casey Keeler last year, me and Brandon did on our podcast, and this was, he had a tweet in the spring kind of critiquing teams that jump from the FCS to FBS, because he says, I want to play for national championships, not for, pointless bowl games. And I honestly don't believe Casey Keeler wanted this move. I don't think it's a good fit for him. When they won the national championship at Sam Houston, he said that we now become, forever national champions. We are now forever national champions. Nobody cares when you win the Boca Raton Bowl. You know what I'm saying? And even if they win 6 games for their very first season, nobody cares. He wants to play for national championships. And I wouldn't be surprised if the right job came across, that Casey Keeler jumps ship from Sam Houston and goes somewhere in the FCS. I think he wants to be in the FCS. I think he enjoys being in the FCS. And I don't think this is a move he wanted. And maybe his heart's not in it. But we'll see. I mean, he's a head coach. He would never lay out and not coach the way he wants. But I just feel like it's just a part of him. The FCS was a part of him. He's won 2 national championships, one at Delaware, Sam Houston. He's an FCS guy. He knows national championships make you now the notoriety that comes with it, those rings, and no one can ever take that away from you. And going up to the FBS, he knows he's not going to be playing for anything for the foreseeable future. And I think that frustrates him.
Yeah. Like, he's 63, 62, 63. He's still got some tread on the tires, right, as a coach. And I think any FCS program who needs a coach would take him in a heartbeat, would be like, hey man, you win, you know how to win. You've done it at Delaware. You've done it at Rowan. You've done it everywhere you've coached, and at Sam Houston, obviously, you know how to win. It sort of surprised me that I guess it does, because at the end of the day, it's really a president's decision about moving, the president's an AD, but it's really the president and Dr. White, I believe is her name, at Sam. It was for it, but I honestly can't see him staying at Sam more than a couple of years. I think if a school, like, let's just use Kennesaw State, if Bohannon was to take a new job, if they were to reach out to Keeler, I think he would go like that. He would just make the move. And that maybe that's just the right thing. He is not an FBS coach. He doesn't want to be an FBS coach. Like you said, he likes the level he plays at. He likes contending for national championship. He doesn't give two craps about the Boca Raton Bowl or the Bahamas Bowl or the New Orleans Bowl or the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl or the whatever bowl.
You're picking all the good ones, man. Who doesn't want to go to Boca?
Have you been to that stadium in Boca? I was gonna say you think Bowers is bad. That stadium is. To the point, like there's nothing there except for playing the week before Christmas on a bar as a background. That's what you get as
at 11 a.m.
Yeah, at 11 a.m. Like, he wants that national championship. Yes, to be fair, the FCS game doesn't draw the viewers that the New Year's Bowls do or things like that. But he's not going to be in a New Year's Bowl. Everybody talks about now the group of 5 have a chance at the CF. They don't. They really don't. They've made that to where the Conference USA isn't going to sniff that. No offense. Maybe Jacksonville State might, but like Sam's not going to, and they're going to find a way to make that where it's just about the big schools again. That's just what's going to happen. So I don't see him staying there. It is kind of sad to see it. I wish I've said this before, like, I know Joe wished Sam Houston the best of luck once they transition. We at some point, if SFA were to jump, I'm sure the rivalry will start back up because of the proximity of the schools. A lot of our fan bases interact with each other, and I absolutely wish them the best. But man, oh man, do I think they went after a big thing and didn't do it the right way. That's just what it is.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps everything up for tonight. It was fun, and Nathan, we were so glad that you were able to be here with us. Before we go, let everyone that may be listening know where they can find you, whether it be on Twitter or your podcast. Let everybody know.
Yeah, at McCreary Radio on Twitter and at FCS Check Down on Twitter, as well as are the podcast show link. And Brandon, Joseph, and I have the FCS Check Down. We focus a lot on the Southeast region, the ASUN and the WAC, but we've kind of reached out this year a little bit of a longer reach to kind of draw in some other FCS schools. And we're just having a blast. We have a pick'em segment at the end. I think it's one of the best pick'em segments I've heard. I mean, we have Coach Ron, who is the father of Ryan Jackson, the EKU defensive lineman, comes on, and he is fantastic. He has his ridiculous underdog picks each week. So, yeah, we just have a good time, and we enjoy it. And I tell you, I never thought – it didn't matter to me if 10 or 100 people or 1,000 people listen. We're just going to do the show and have fun with it. And we've had great response and a lot of reoccurring fans. So we just appreciate everybody listening, tuning in, and the relationships we're building. And we've had Rev on, and I know we've had Brandon on last year. And we got to get you on when UCA starts playing better football.
Yeah, maybe so.
I will say with your show, like, I love the interviews that you have, but man, the segment with Coach Ron and the picks, my absolute favorite to listen to, like, just because of how just his underdog picks, that hit, he nails it sometimes. And it's absolute great show. Well, thanks. Like, it was a pleasure being on last week. Thanks for coming on this week. We appreciate having you.
I appreciate the invite, and it's a great relationship, and I'll be reaching out to all you guys to get your thoughts and be guests on the show. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate everybody listening in this week to WACSUN Weekly. Make sure you subscribe to the FCS Fans Nation YouTube channel. Please hit that subscribe button. That keeps us being able to get this thing going. And make sure you join the FCS Fans Nation Facebook group. It is I guess we're like 12,000 people strong now. And so it is really great what gets said and shown on there. It's really awesome. And make sure if you're going to Frisco, get your tickets. Very few left. So do that if you want to come hang out with a giant melting pot of people. So we appreciate you listening. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, and we'll see everybody next week.